Hey everyone, it's AJ from Pixelize, and today I want to show you how to build a custom slider like this in your any page builder, Breaks, Elementor, doesn't matter what you're using. I do prefer use custom code because it's a lot easier, and you will see why, because there's a way you have to work around when you use page builders. You need to think of overwriting the default settings, how it's set up. So it's always easier to do with custom code. Now, if you don't know how to code it from scratch, then that's fine. This is the tutorial for you to show you how you could adjust certain elements and build something custom like this and unique to your project. Now, this is quite engaging slider, as you can see if you click on the thumbnails. You could get something like this from a Splite or Swiper as well, so I will cover this in a different video. At the moment, we're going to do a pure custom, just in case you want to make something of your own. Now, you can see we have a buttons here, previous, and we have a next as well. Whatever copy you want to put, we have a custom animation going in and transition. So as you can see, everything works nicely. The code is available at the end of the video, so don't worry, you'll be able to look at the code and adjust it to your own requirements. So first, let's dive into the builder. So I'm using today Bricks because it's a lot easier for me to customize stuff with this. It's more user friendly. Now, we have a section which I named the hero section. The only thing we have here, as you can see, there's nothing there. The only thing we have here is height, which is set to 100 VH on the max height. Then inside we have a container, which the container's got a class, and I will cover this in a second. But inside the container we have 3 blocks, and inside the hero section we have a code, so we'll cover that as well. So let's start with the slider. So the slider is what keeps hold of all the list items. So the big, obviously this whole, you see that the change that goes, the whole thing. The arrows is obviously the arrows, it speaks for itself, and the thumbnails are here. Now this container has got a class called slider, and you can see there's a custom CSS there, but what we need to do first is just make sure the margin is 0 and even the padding, and set the width to 100% so it stretches out, nothing else, because the rest is done in a CSS. Okay, so you are in Bricks, it changes a class slider to root, but this will be a slider. So we said again here we could remove this, but I'm just going to leave it because for some reason when you override certain stuff it doesn't actually work, so I'd rather have it in both places. Now the reason why I got margin top minus 50 pixels is because when I was custom coding it, I had a header, so that's why. Now with other classes you go root, list, and item. So the item, so this is a list and this will be the item, right? So when you look at this, we targeting the slider, then the list, which is basically a wrapper that has all the items in it, and each individual item that has the class. We set them to position absolute, insert. So obviously the code itself speaks here. I don't think I have to walk through this because it's self-explanatory how the CSS works. What you will notice is there's a keyframe, so that's the animation, show to content 2. So it starts from the default, whatever the default have set up, because this is hard to see, and then we have a filter blur 0 and opacity 1 and then translate 0. So show content, where did I put this class? It should be somewhere here, I think it's at the bottom. There it is. So we go slider item, slider list item on active, because it will have to have a class active. So one of these, the first one always going to have an active, and then when you use the JavaScript it will put the active on the next one. So we got active, the first child, the heading, and this should be the second, but I'm just gonna, let's see if this is gonna break me a screen or not. Let's have a look. No, so we have to put it on the third. and that will work. This is what I mean. It's difficult to choose it in a build like this. But then we have a slider, list, item active, and a heading as well. Animation delay on this, so we want to delay. So once we have the animation set, we can delay on each of them and set the duration as well. So for example, if I have a fade in animation, I will set a default on all of them, but then I will put a delay on a specific element, or maybe I want to make sure it takes a bit longer to load on the different element, right? So that's how you could adjust things. Now the thumbnails are over here. You could remove this from here, the thumbnails, because the thumbnails are added over here. I'm just going to leave it there just in case, because I don't want this to break, but I shouldn't. Let me just remove this thumbnail because it shouldn't be here. There's no animation, yeah, so we can remove this. Oh, that's strange. This is what I mean with the builder, you see. Well, I kind of like this, not gonna lie, but what I don't like, okay, let me just reverse this. There you go. So you see, this is what I mean when you build it with builder like this, is you have to play around because it's difficult to create it compared to if you do use like a code editor and just code it from scratch. Now the next part is we got a list class because obviously of the CSS here. Then we have item because it's the item inside the list, so this should be a UL, right? At the moment I'm not going to set this as a UL because it's a bit pointless for me to do it. You could do a crawl loop on them ones as well. This should be a li if you're going to code this and have a semantic structure. But you notice there's an active class and these don't have an active. It's because when you do use a JavaScript, it will switch to the next one. So if we go inspect and we look into the elements, let me just close this. So where is the list? There it is. So we can see item active, and it's going to go to the next one. Then it's on the first one. Then go to the second one, third one. Why? Oh, click the wrong one. So there's a timer set as well. You could remove the timer if you want, but I think the timer is quite cool. So that's why we have the class, right? So it just switches by itself. Now with the images, over here, you just set it as a picture for this, but in the thumbnail, we have similar structure, but instead of calling this thumbnail list, it's called thumbnail, and then you call them an item and have an active class as well. But the difference is we don't have a content, and we have to make the images to height and width 100% on here, because for some reason the CSS doesn't want to target it. Maybe something to do with the page builder, I don't know. But if you notice it, I put a class img just so I could add it to every single one of those and target one element, so that every single one of them will have the same thing, instead of going into one, changing a second, third. It's so much easier to do that way. And then in the code itself, if you go to the code, you only have a JavaScript, so you always have to put document.add event listener content loader, because otherwise it won't work in page builder. So a bit strange, but this is what I don't like here. So over here we have obviously items. So we select all the items of the list here. We select the next and the pref button, right? Oops. and we select the thumbnails as well, so all the items in the thumbnail. Now we have a count item, so we check how many items we have in the array, and that will give us the length, which will be 5 items in there. And item active, so which item is active. So the way array works is from index 0, it won't be 1, but it starts from 0. So we have a next setup. You could put event listener, add event listener, click, it makes no difference. It's just a shortcut. Is item active, so we will set the current item active to the next one. So if we click next, it will increase by 1. So instead of having 0, it will be 1. I had a console log here that shouldn't be here, and it shouldn't be here as well. So once that is, then we run the show slider function, which is over somewhere here. Where did I put it? Show slider here. So we obviously grab the active slider and as well active thumbnail slider, and then we remove the active from the old active thumbnail on this item that was in the slider, and then we add to the one that is on the active item. So for example, if let's say we click on this one, on the third one, but currently we have the first one as active, what it will do, it will remove the current one firstly, then it will select the items, which is somewhere items here, right? So it will select, which will be the third one, which will be 2. So in the array, the second, which is the third item, and add a active list to it. Same with the thumbnail, right? So it will select this one and then thumbnail as well. Then we have a refresher, which is obviously the set timeout and the clear timeout. So automatically does this. And as you can see in the thumbnail as well, does the same thing, sets the index to the item active. So self-explanatory. All the code is there available, but it's just most importantly understanding the logic. If we go into my GitHub repository, you could go to my GitHub. I think the link should be available in the comments. Basically, you could type it in URL, or you just be able to click it. I don't know if the YouTube is going to allow me to add the link, but you could either download the zip or you could clone it. Now I'm just want to jump into the app.js, because this way it will be a lot easier. Let me see if I can zoom it in. Yeah, so hopefully you can see this better. So as you can see, we select all the items in the list. We select the button next, the previous, and select all the items in the thumbnail. We set the length of how many items we have in the list, and the current active item, which will be the first one, which is 0, because indexes starts in 0 in arrays. Then we have a function running. So this could be add event listener click. If not, then obviously this is a shortcut. Now we set the item active equals to item active plus 1. You could put +1, plus equals 1. That's the same thing, but just to make it more clear for you what is going on, is we increase the item by 1. So currently 0, the next button you click, it will be the second item, which will be 1, the third will be the second, so will be 2, and so on. Now when it equals or is greater than the length of the count item, which would be either 5, 6, whatever you have there, let's say it's 6. If this is equals to 6 or is greater than 6, then what it will do, it will basically set to first item. So this is when you are all the way at the end. So if you have 4 items in there, it will be 4, but the length is always by 1. Now it will run this show slider next. Then you have obviously, I just put a console log there, just you can remove this. Just forgot to remove it. I might edit this. Same with the previous, but it's reverse. If the item active is less than 0, which will be 0 will mean the first item, the one after that would be -1. So obviously if it's going to be -1, it's going to put to count item -1, which means the last, which will be the 4th item in the array. And then we run the show slider, which then the show slider simply what it does is selects the active item in the slider, selects the active item in the thumbnail, removes the classes from there, and then adds the classes to them by looking at the index of the list and the thumbnails. Then we have a set timeout running, which is obviously somewhere here, set interval, and then we clear the interval and set it again. And this thumbnails is basically run for each, which every time you click, the index will be added into item active and it will run the show slider. So it's self-explanatory. Play around with it, but hopefully you could implement this into your projects. So yeah, everything works. The only thing is I forgot to add is mouse over them. Right, so when you go here, hover, pointer, let's see if that's actually CSS gonna work. Hover. Okay, so root item, that's the one thing I forgot to add. Hover. Let's see if it's gonna rock or break. Yeah, for some reason, and this is what I mean, like when you're using things like this, it's just really annoying because you should hover over. So it might be the case that I might need to go into each of them, right? And then I'll be, hopefully this might work. Type, no, it's not the cursor, pointer, let's see if that actually works. Yeah, you see, it didn't work through the CSS, but it works through here. And this is what I mean, like, let's add this pointer event, well, pointer class, and then pointer. And this is what I mean by working with page builders. This always pros and cons. It's easy to make a website with a page builder if you don't know how to code it. But then there's a limitation to it as well, and restrictions, and you have to work around it. So now it makes it better. So yeah, there you go. Custom slider, code available. You could either download this, run it on your VS Code, clone it, or just simply go in and copy and paste it and adjust it to your needs. Hopefully you enjoyed it. It was simple to understand. If you do have any questions, just let me know in the comments. I will try to make a video about the split and the swiper, because if we go into, my microphone's new failed, split, they have really cool sliders, right? But again, the thing is about this is the CSS, how you're gonna customize them, because I was building it last night. It wasn't the easiest thing, so I had to spend a little bit of time of figuring this out, because there's really cool sliders you can make with this. I mean, top notch. It's just being able to obviously properly add the CSS to it, because I kind of like this, you see. So yeah, have a go at this and let me know. Hopefully you enjoyed it.